Combining sentences. I wrote a paragraph. The sentences are simple. They are uniform. Each sentence has one subject. Each sentence has one verb. Each sentence is an independent clause. The whole paragraph is devastatingly boring. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Miss Rose, and this is my ghost lesson on combining sentences. We're going to meet the standard today. Use a semicolon and perhaps a conjunctive adverb to link two or more closely related independent clauses. Also, we're going to apply that to our works in progress, developing and strengthening our writing by planning, revising, editing, rewriting, and trying a new approach, such as using that semicolon, which is our purpose. A quick recap or review for you. There are four kinds of sentences as it relates to the subject and verb layout of the sentence. A simple sentence that only has one subject and verb, a compound sentence that has two independent clauses put together, a complex sentence that has an independent clause and a dependent clause, or a compound complex sentence that has two independent clause and a subordinate clause. The one that we're concerned most with today, putting two sentences together, is a compound sentence. Here's an example of two very short sentences. I'm a clause, this is also a clause. If I'm going to put these together as one longer sentence, one way that I can do that is to just change that period to a comma and add a coordinating conjunction. I'm a clause, comma, and this is also a clause, as though these are just two equal things that have a similarity. You can choose any of the coordinating conjunctions. Those are the fanboys: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Again, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, fanboys. Those with a comma in front of them makes a compound sentence. So what about this sentence with a different one? Like, but I'm a clause, but this is also a clause. That does change the meaning a little bit, as though there's some sort of difference between the two, yet they still have a fundamental similarity in that they're both clauses. Or, I am a clause, for this is also a clause. Now that implies because one is a clause and the other one is as well. So changing the word does change the meaning of the sentence. So you can't just take any coordinating conjunction and put it after the comma, but to make sure that it matches with the context of the rest of the sentence. They're the fanboys. So two independent clauses plus a comma plus a coordinating conjunction equals a compound sentence. What happens though if I have those independent clauses and a comma, but I take away the coordinating conjunction? Oh, don't do it. That's a comma slice. That sounded like a Suzanne, sorry. That's a juice box. I'm a clause, comma, this is also a clause. That does not work, you guys. So put the comma and the coordinating conjunction, or, well, I'm sorry, before I go on to the or, let's fix these two comma splices using the method we've already seen, which is comma and a coordinating conjunction. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Raoul went to Walgreens. He bought a candy bar. Let's try the most common one, and. Raoul went to Walgreens and he bought a candy bar. His friend Kaz asked for a piece of it. Raoul said no. Since that's a contrast, contrasting in behavior or expected behavior, then but maybe makes more sense in that context. There is another way. You could use a semicolon and perhaps a conjunctive adverb to link two or more closely related independent clauses. Let's put those sentences together with a semicolon. Same sentence, we've already seen it. You ready for this? Wait for it. Okay, next sentence. Yeah, so I really just put a dot right on top of the comma, and that turned it into a semicolon, and now we have a sentence that works. It's no longer a run-on sentence. It is no longer a comma splice. Raoul went to Walgreens, he bought a candy bar. It does shorten up the gap between the two clauses. When you're reading aloud and you come to a period, which British call the full stop, you take a longer hesitation than you do with the semicolon. You take maybe half a hesitation, maybe not even take a breath between the breaks with the semicolon. So it implies that the two clauses are closely related and should be considered together. This is good. Oh, that's fun. Okay. But there is yet another way. Again, our standard, use a semicolon and perhaps a conjunctive adverb. Let's try it with the conjunctive adverb. But what's a conjunctive adverb? Well, as a matter of fact, you have a paper in front of you that you should probably be gluing into your writing notebook right now. So I'll take a moment while you glue that paper of conjunctive adverbs into your notebook. Here's an example. This is what the list looks like. Also, finally, furthermore, in addition, moreover, anyway, incidentally, meanwhile, next, still, accordingly, consequently, hence, therefore, thus. Equally, likewise, similarly, by contrast, instead, however, nevertheless, nonetheless, indeed, in fact, undoubtedly. That's not all of the conjunctive adverbs, but it's a lot of them, so it gives you an idea. And then we'll see how they function in a sentence. Now, the thing about an adverb is that adverbs can move around a sentence, where an adjective, which describes a noun, has to hang out pretty close to the thing that it's describing. But adverbs, one of the traits of them is that you can put it in different places and the sentence still works. Now, it can't go just anywhere, but one of the traits is that an adverb can usually move. And I'll show you an example of how that works in just a moment. So here's our same sentences. We still have the semicolon. We're just going to put in a conjunctive adverb after the semicolon. And since the sentences are still like one sentence, then that has to be lowercase after the semicolon. When you move on from a semicolon, the next letter, unless it's a proper noun, is always lowercase. Raoul went to Walgreens. Incidentally, he bought a candy bar. Kaz asked for a piece of it. Nevertheless, Raoul said no. And those adverbs kind of feel like interrupters, so we set them off with commas as well. Even if we move it around the sentence, we'll put commas on either side of it if it feels like it's interrupting the flow. So it's still correct as two sentences. Any place you put a semicolon, putting two sentences together, you can still leave those sentences apart. So you could just capitalize incidentally. You could just capitalize nevertheless and put a period at the end of the first sentence, and that's okay. Still works. So let me back up and show you that again. There it is, lowercase with a semicolon. Here it is, uppercase for the second sentence and with a period. Let's see what it looks like to move those adverbs around, though. So here's incidentally right after the semicolon, but I'm going to move it to the end of the sentence. Okay. And there goes nevertheless also. So he bought a candy bar, incidentally. Or Raoul nevertheless said no. Still works. You may find that you have a preference for where you think it should be, and a professional editor will also have a preference, but it can move and it's not wrong. Let's recap. Two short sentences. He follows me on Instagram. I don't use Snapchat. I can put these together with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Remember those. Comma so. He follows me on Instagram. So I don't use Snapchat. Like, because we're on Instagram, then I don't need to interact with them on Snapchat. Or I can put it together with, what was the other one? Oh yeah, a semicolon. There it is. Or a semicolon and a conjunctive adverb. He follows me on Instagram. Anyway, I don't use Snapchat. Or that can still be two sentences with that conjunctive adverb, and it's still a-okay. So there's not just one way to do this. The author has liberty to make decisions about how a sentence should read. So again, there's our standard for today. Use a semicolon, perhaps a conjunctive adverb to link two or more closely related independent clauses. Yeah. What's next? We're going to move to paired practice and your solo demonstration. In front of you, you guys should be passing back a sheet. The bold sentences you're going to do with your elbow partner, and we have examples of all three of these kinds of sentence combinations, and a couple that you're going to have to make your own decisions on that do have more than one right answer. So if you feel like your partner says the answer is this and you feel the answer is equally valid to be something else, you may both be right, because this is subject to your opinion, like which adverb you're going to put in there or which conjunction you're going to put in there. The ones that are not in bold, after you finish the ones in bold, I want you to turn your back on your partner and do the ones that are in Roman, that means not bold. Do those by yourself, please. And then, that'll only take you a couple minutes because I only have a couple of them that are in Roman. Swap check with your aisle partner. Oops. And then the highlighted section, set that aside and move to your work in progress. And I want you to do this twice. I want you to combine two sets of sentences. So one set of sentences I want you to combine with a semicolon. And then another set of sentences I want you to use a semicolon and a conjunctive adverb. Again, get that from your list. And then our work in progress mantra today is I will intentionally vary sentence structures. Set your pens and pencils down for a moment with me and say this with me. You'll echo me. I'll say it first. I will intentionally vary sentence structures. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Mrs. Rose, and I look forward to teaching you again.